Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sammy Ketchum, and welcome back to Sammy Ketchum TCG. Today, I'm coming to you here with a Pikachu and Zekrom deck profile and meta-analysis for Atlantic City Regionals, Cologne Regionals, and I think they have one more tournament going on this weekend. But yeah, there's like 3 really big events going on this weekend for Pokemon. And this is going to be probably the, not the first regional, but like, I think, yeah, like the first American regional that we're going to have in this format. Cologne is this weekend, and I think they have one more. I can't think of where that event is, but they have 3 events going on this weekend. And we are going to basically see what this new format is going to shape up to be at these events. Right now we have really, they're basically 3 top tier decks that are basically, competing for that best spot. Basically, you have Reshizard. And there's like different forms of Reshizard. You have Reshizard, and you have Ability Nozard or Welder Box. You have Pikarom, and there's many different versions of Pikarom. And then you also have Mew Box, which is Mew and Mewtwo Tag Team GX. But today we are going to talk about Pikarom, specifically mastering Pikarom. I have been playing this deck ever since they announced it, ever since it released in Tag Team. As soon as I heard that this was going to be a thing for the World Championships, I was just like, yeah, I'm making this my deck. This is something that I'm going to play. Electric is my favorite type. I play with lightning, electric Pokemon really well. So yeah, like I was all aboard. But yeah, so this is what we're gonna talk about today. All right. Let's go ahead and jump into this. I'm not gonna. Alright, let's just jump into this. 2 Pikachu and Zekrom GX. I'm not gonna bother going through the attacks or what have you. This is basically a discussion for advanced players. We already know what these cards do. Now, some cards I will go over because of deck choices and things that you would see in the meta about different deck types. I'll explain that stuff. But as far as standard stuff in the deck, I really won't go through them like that. So 2 Pikachu and Zekrom. Two copies of Raichu and Alolan Raichu GX. Now, this I will kind of explain, because usually, like, I've seen some people who've only won 1 copy of Raichu. I honestly think that is not a good idea, because if you're only running 1, then if this gets either taken out or if it's in your prizes, you're really going to be in a bad spot. This is basically going to be one of your best attackers in the deck, especially with the ability to paralyze and the ability to use like this GX attack and potentially knock off a big tag team. 5 energies, 4 energies for 250 plus electro power will basically knock out a Mew, will knock out a Reshizard, etc. So you need this, and honestly, you need to run two. I mean that's just it. I mean I can't explain it even. I can't explain anything else about it. You need two. You know you gotta have two. Two copies of the Dena GX. Um, I'm going to in this deck because I mean I have a pretty decent reliable way of drawing cards and searching cards. Um, I did have three Dedenes in here, but I felt three was too much because I was burning too much of the stuff out of my hand. I was getting rid of too many. I was getting rid of much of my resources. Um, you know, discarding my reset stamps, discarding my energy switches. Yeah, I was getting rid of everything, and it was hurting me really bad. You know, so I went down to two, and I found other routes of draw power, other routes of search to help me get what I need. But right now, two is just enough for me. Um, but 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 normally three is fine. If you're playing a normal Pikarom deck, three is fine for the turbo, what have you. If you can, you know, if you can do it and go for it, three is just fine. Um, one copy of Zero Aura GX. Honestly, I would like to have two copies in here, but I'm going one copy in this deck because I have other ways of retreating in this deck. Retreating, switching out. Um, but you still need one copy. Two copies is definitely preferable. Um, his ability is just great, you know, and his attack is not bad at all either. You know, especially if you're playing against Mew Mew and they go Tag Purge, he basically becomes the attacker in the deck. So one copy of Zapdos. You know, using the switch in, switch out, Thunderous Assault, 80 damage. Tapu Koko, Dance of the Ancients, get you energies from the discard pile. Two copies of Jirachi. Now, I've seen people play three, I've seen people play four, which is all fine, you know. But for me, I'm going two. I'm going to because of the simple fact that with the way that I play, you know, I don't necessarily have to see him on the first turn. I don't necessarily have to see this on the first turn. You know what I'm saying? This deck can go turbo. This deck can go turbo. This deck can get out what it needs without Jirachi. You know what I'm saying? So Jirachi is basically in here. It's just icing on the cake for me. You know, if I start with a Choo Choo or if I start with a Pikarom, I can basically just set up just as well. You know what I'm saying? I can just sit there and go full turbo, you know, and then, you know, maybe like later on in the game, if I happen to have this on my bench, let's say they knock out one of my Pokemon or whatever, boom, I can bring this up, and then I could just icing on the cake, find what I need, or find something else that I need, or get like another piece of a combo that I may need in my hand. You know, like let's just say that I use Volkner. I use Volkner to get like the second custom catcher if I have one in my hand. And let's say I wanted to reset stamp my opponent as well, and I don't have a reset stamp in my hand. This can help me find a reset stamp. You know, or this can help me find a second custom catcher. Or this can help me find an electro power. You know, or something like that. Or if I don't have a supporter, this can help me find a supporter. This can help me find a Volkner that'll get me the electro power, custom catcher, electromagnetic radar, etc. So, you know, Jirachi's still good in here. I mean, right now I like him at 2. One copy of Mew. This is a new inclusion into this deck. I added it in here because, I mean, I don't want to be sniped by opposing Pokemon. This stops Naganadel GX, the dragon one, from doing Venom Shot. This also stops Esper from doing its snipe damage in Malamar decks. This also stops opposing Pikarom players from going Tag Bolt. So this is a very, very good card right now in this deck. I'm going to tell you guys a story. Like recently, I was playing in a tournament Saturday, a League Cup Saturday, and the last game that I played against a Malamar deck. And yeah, I was not playing this card in my deck. And lo and behold, they brought out the Esper. I had damage on both my Pikarom and my Choo Choo on the bench. Well, one of them was active, but I had damage on them. So he came out, brought out his Esper, and he knocked one of them out. I think he knocked out my Pikarom. So he knocked out my Pikarom. You know, my next turn, I come back up. You know, I reset stamp him, and then I knock out his Esper. You know, so I'm thinking I'm good. I reset stamp him to 3. He doesn't have that many cards to work with. You know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking, okay, you know, I knocked out his only Esper. You know, I'm probably pretty good. I'm in the zone to win this game. I only have 1 prize left. He has 3 left. So his turn comes. He draws. He has a Mysterious Treasure in his hand. He goes Mysterious Treasure for his second Esper. Man, as soon as he shows me the Esper, I just extend my hand and like, good game, sir, you got it. Because I already know what he's gonna do. You know, he has Jirachi in the active. You know, he has an skateboard on it. He has Malamars on the bench. He can attach energies from the discard pile to the Esper. He can bring out the Esper and knock out my other Pokemon. You know, good game. You know. Yeah, so he was able to take advantage of my bench Pokemon with damage on it. And I didn't have this in my deck. I did not have this out or in my deck. You know, I got hurt. You know, so I need this. And I need to stop him. I mean, that's all to it. That's all it is. You know, I got to keep myself safe. You know, and and me keeping myself safe takes away from the Esper being important. Takes away from Venom Shot being important. Takes away from Tag Bolt being important. They have to go another route, which is also going to help me win. You know. Four copies of Cynthia. I prefer Cynthia over Lily. And here's my reasoning behind that. Lily is only good during the first turn of the game. You know, if you can get your hand down low enough, you can basically go Lily, draw up to 8 cards. Alright? After that, Lily is basically useless. It is just simply useless. You might as well just discard all the copies with the DNA after that. It is just seriously useless. The most you can draw off of a Lily after that, maybe 4. You know, Lily draw 3. I don't know. It just isn't. You really won't draw enough off of Lily that will really help you enough throughout the game after that first turn. Also, even if you have the lily in your hand for the first turn, um, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can't discard your hand or get your hand down low enough to where you can make lily worth it. You may only be able to basically get rid of 2 cards in your hand, and you're sitting there with like 6 cards in your hand or 5 cards in your hand. And if you play Lily, you're only going to draw like 3, or maybe you draw like 4. You know, I, and the rest of your cards in your hand are like dead cards. They're dead cards that you can't use until like later on in the game. And you're sitting there like, man, I can't draw really anything off this Lily. And even if I draw like 3 cards, what are the chances that those 3 cards are going to basically help me to get to where I need to be? So also another thing, sometimes you'll have cards like Lily, and then you'll have like Volkner in your hand. Most of the time you would actually want to go Volkner first turn rather than Lily. With Volkner, you can sit there and go Volkner, get an energy and an electromagnetic radar. Go electromagnetic radar. If you have another energy in your hand, you can play radar, discard 2 lightning energies. Lightning energies, Tapu Koko Prism. See where I'm going here? Alright. Electromagnetic radar, go get Dedenne, go get Pikarom or Dedenne, and Choo Choo, Dedenne, and Zero Aura. Play the other one. Or if you have Pokemon Communication in your hand, go Pokemon Communication. Get out the Tapu Koko Prism Star. Play the Tapu Koko Prism Star. Play down to the Dedenne. Discard your hand. Draw 6 cards. You've got a new hand with 6 cards. You're basically going in. You're about to explode. Instead of basically sitting there going Lily, when you can't discard that many cards out of your hand, you're only drawing about like 3 or 4 cards. You still got like 4 more cards in your hand that are basically dead that you can't do anything with. It's not optimal at all. It's not optimal at all. And then it's not really good, after that. So another reason why I value Cynthia over Lily is because sometimes you don't want to discard all the cards from your hand with the Dedenne. You don't want to get rid of all your cards. You want to shuffle your stuff back in so you can have them later on to use them. You don't always want to go full turbo, discard everything with the Dedenne. And you're sitting there, you're getting rid of your reset stamps, you're getting rid of your energy switches, you're getting rid of some of your most important stuff. Now, some stuff you can kind of get away with and discard, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's necessary to discard your hand with the Dedenne, but you don't want to discard all your resources. That's why Cynthia's in here, so you can keep your stuff, shuffle your hand back into your deck. You're still drawing 6 cards. You're still drawing a good enough amount, that you can basically get what you need, get mostly what you need off of it. And if you don't get what you need off of it, and if you have out the Jirachi can also help you get your other stuff that you need. That's why Jirachi is in here. Alright. We have ourselves 4 copies of Volkner. Alright. Volkner is basically just like Welder for fire decks. I want to play this just about every single turn. Reason why? Because it could basically find just about anything that I want in my deck other than supporters. This could find me energy. This can find me Pokemon. This can find me Electro Power. How can this find me Pokemon? This can get electromagnetic radar. this automatically gets me the energy from my deck as well. So yeah, I can find just about anything with this, except for supporters. Other than that, I can find anything else in this deck, which is great. Oh, I can also get a stadium with this. I can pull out Stadium Nav in my deck. Stadium Navi, or Stadium Nav. Flip 2 coins. If one of them is heads, go get a stadium from my deck. So I can instantly go get a stadium from my deck. 90% of the time, Stadium Navi will at least get me 1 heads. And it hasn't really failed me that much at all. I mean, Stadium Navi is just so good for this deck, especially since Volkner can find it. I mean, that's just great. When I have 1 card in here that can find me just about anything in my deck. I mean, yeah, I don't draw off of it like Welder, but I can find just about anything in my deck. That's great. That's why I want to play this every turn. If I sit there and I have like a Volkner or a Cynthia in my hand, I'm probably going to play the Volkner first. Alright. 4 copies of Electro Power. This adds 30 damage to all my electric Pokemon's attacks. So if Pikachu and Zekrom does full blitz for 150, 1 is 180, 2 is 210, and so on and so on. Yeah. So where my Pokemon's damage is subpar, these make up for it. 4 copies of Custom Catcher. Custom Catcher is good for its second effect. Use 2 at the same time, and you can bring up one of your opponent's Pokemon from the bench to their active spot. You can use them. You can basically knock them out, or put them up there to stall them out, or what have you. The first effect is also good. If you have less than 3 cards in your hand, you play it, and you can draw up to 3 cards. Sometimes in the game you basically would only get off 1 double catcher. Also during the game, you probably, like, if you're down to like 2 or 3 cards, you play this and you draw maybe 1 or 2 cards, or if you have no cards in your hand, you draw 3. So I mean, sometimes you could use this like that. It's not a bad option. So 3 copies of Electromagnetic Radar. I've seen people play 4. I mean, which isn't bad. I mean, but I see the reason behind why they would play 4. You want consistency to find this card, because this card can find you just about every single Pokemon in this deck, except for Tapu Koko Prism and Zapdos. So a card that can find just about anything in your deck, any of your Pokemon in your deck. Especially your Electric GXs, which is very good. And you find two of them with 1 card. Yeah, you discard 2 cards, but you can benefit from it. You discard 2 cards, discard 2 electric energies. During the beginning of the game, Tapu Koko Prism Star can get them right back. So I mean, it's not really bad at all. It's really great. It's really great for this deck. We have ourselves 3 copies of Switch. Switch is very good. You switch out your active with your bench, that sort of thing. Switch is basically in here for the Jirachi engine. It's part of the Jirachi engine. You have Jirachi, you have a skateboard, and you have Switch. Switch, you're active out, swap in Jirachi, Stellar Wish. After you Stellar Wish, retreat because of this skateboard, bring out your attacker. That's what we got. Also Switch Can also help you get out of paralysis and other stuff if you don't have the draw GX. Or if you don't have an electric energy on one of your Pokemon for Zeraora's ability to go off. Or if you're under power plant. If you're under power plant, these switches will save you. Free copies of Energy Switch. Energy Switch is very important in this deck because you want to move around your energies. After Pikarom does his full blitz and attaches to a Pokemon on the bench, you can move around your energies to wherever you want on the board. So you either can attack with whoever you want. If you want to go Tag Bolt, you can move energies around to go Tag Bolt. If you want to move energies to a Choo Choo, you can move energies to a Choo Choo to get off his GX attack. You know, or maybe you're not doing a GX attack. Maybe you're moving them from Pikarom to another Pokemon to get them ready to attack. But that's what these are for. You've got options. These help you get to those options. Tag switch is just what it says. You move energies from your tag team Pokemon to another one of your Pokemon. So I can move energies from Choo Choo or Pikarom to any of my other Pokemon. I can move them from one tag team to another tag team. You know, I can move them to Zeraora. I can move an energy to Zapdos. Shoot, if I wanted to attack with Tapu Koko Prism Star, God forbid if I do, I can attack with that, but you really don't want to. But Tag Switch is very important in this deck. This is one of the only decks that can really abuse this card. And it is busted in here. Very busted. Alright. 2 Pokemon communication. So you can swap a Pokemon from your hand and get another Pokemon that you want from your deck. Alright. Preferably either you swap out your Pokemon in your hand for either Tapu Koko or Zapdos. Those are the Pokemon you basically cannot find in electromagnetic radar. These are what this is in here for. Oh, you can also find Mew with this. So you can swap out a GX for a Mew if you want to. If you have extra GX in your hand. Lightning GX in your hand, of course. But yeah, these will help you find your basic Pokemon that are not electric GXs. Simple. Alright, we have ourselves 2 copies of Reset Stamp. Reset Stamp is very, very, very important in this deck. Reset Stamp is basically like its own win condition in this deck. Reset Stamp, yeah, is very important because, you know, if your opponent knocks out one of your tag team Pokemon, there are 3 prizes. You know, you automatically want to go Reset Stamp them to 3, and then you want to hit them with an attack, you know, either knocking them out or paralyzing them or something, you know. It's kind of like that double, it's like a double hit. It's like, oh, I'll Reset Stamp you. Oh, I'll take all the cards you have in your hand, like let's say you have a big hand. Oh, now you go down to 3, you don't have that many resources, and I knock out your Pokemon. So, you know, now you're right back into the game. Reset Stamp is so important in this deck. You know, you can basically win the game off of this. And the reason why I say that is because if you Reset Stamp them and they don't have too much or anything to do on their next turn, your next turn you could basically be in game winning mode. You can just attack and win. You know, and they can't do anything about it because they just don't have the hand or the resources to deal with what you have on the board. You know, so this is a very important card in here. I almost ran 3 in here, but 2 is just fine. And sometimes you may get lucky enough to even stamp them twice. You know, stamp them once. You stamp them once. Yeah, they're pretty, yeah, but they probably could get out of it. If you still have a chance in the game, and they're not, you know, if you still have a chance in the game, hey, shoot, stamp them twice. Make sure, make sure you can win. Yeah, make sure you can win. You know, so stamp them twice. You know, twice is nice. All right. 2 copies of a. Oh, 1 copy of a skateboard. Skateboard is for Jirachi. All right. It can retreat while it's asleep or paralyzed. Simple enough, right? A lot of people, if you have like 4 Jirachis in your deck or whatever, you can play like 2 skateboards, you know, for your Jirachis. You know, that's kind of like common. I'm going 1 in here because I only have 2 Jirachis. I really only want to, you know, have this on 1. I've got like 3 switches, so I could bring them out of the active. It's not really a big deal having 1, you know, but, you know, I have 1. 1 copy of Stadium Nav, just to help you find your Thunder Mountain. This can also help you find your Lysander's Labs or your power plant if you play Pika plants, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, 1 copy of Stadium Nav, which is very good. 90% of the time, you'll get at least 1 hit, which is very good. I absolutely love this in here. It is so good. Um, 1 copy of Stealthy Hood. This is a new inclusion into this deck. This basically stops Pokemon with abilities from affecting your Pokemon. So, let's say you have out a Tapu Koko, and your opponent has down a Wobbuffet with the ability that it says, Prism Star's abilities do not work on the bench while it's on the bench. Well, if I attach this to my Tapu Koko, then this blocks the Wobbuffet. You know, which means Tapu Koko can use its ability. I'm also thinking about switching this to a 3rd Lysander's Labs, which also isn't a bad idea. So, but you know, this spot can switch. But Stealthy Hood is actually not a bad idea against stuff like that. It's also very good against Ninetales in the Welder box or the Reshizard deck. Because Ninetales will not be able to target your Pokemon to bring into the active spot. Because, I mean, you know, Ninetales has an ability that says discard 2 fire energies and bring up one of your opponent's bench Pokemon from the bench to the active spot. If you have this on that Pokemon that they're trying to bring up, they can't do it. They can bring up any other Pokemon that does not have a Stealthy Hood on it, but if anything has a Stealthy Hood on it, they can't bring it up. Copies of Lysander Labs. This is very, very good. This is like my go-to stadium in this deck other than Thunder Mountain. This stops Fairy Charms, Fairy Charm Lightnings, or Fairy Charms in general. This stops Spell Tags. It's also a counter stadium. So if they play Power Plant, boom, it's a counter stadium, boom, I get rid of your stadium. If they play Giant Hearth, boom, I play it, just gets rid of Giant Hearth. You know, any type of tool that your opponent has, this will block. So like, let's say if they have like a stealthy hood on their side, I could play the labs and your stealthy hood does nothing. If they have a choice helmet on one of their Pokemon, this will block the choice helmet. You know. So yeah, this is a very, very good card. But I will also talk about the other stadiums you could play in here, or the other versions of this deck. Let's go Thunder Mountain Prism Star. Basically, all your electric Pokemon's attacks cost 1 electric less, which is very good. This helps you go faster, especially in the early game. Get off an early full blitz, you're off to the races. You know, this is standard bread and butter Pikarom stuff here. Have ourselves 11 lightning energies. Alright. So, now that we've done that, let's talk about the different types of builds for Pikarom. Alright. There's the turbo version. The turbo version doesn't have Jirachis in it. Plays like 3 Dedennes. And it basically just goes full turbo. You know, you go to Dene, discard your hand, try to get off turn 1 full blitz. You know, it usually plays either Lily or Cynthia's. You know, but you're basically just dedicated to just going fast, hitting with full blitz, getting everything out, bing bang boom, you're off to the races. The other decks, like all of the other decks, have Jirachi in them. You have the Lily version, you have the Cynthia version, you have Pika Plants, and you have Pika Judge, or what they call it, Supreme Court. Basically, all you really have to do, if you wanted to play the Lily version, just take out the Cynthias for Lilies. And that's the Lily version. You wanted to play the Judge version, take out the Cynthias or Lilies for 4 Judge. And there you go, you got the Judge version. Now, each build does something different. Lily basically helps you keep the cards in your hand. You shuffle your hand back to your deck. You know, you keep cards. Lily is straight draw. So, if you want straight draw, like the straight draw cards in your hand, like let's say you want to hold cards in your hand, if you have like maybe one piece of the card and you want to try to draw it out of your deck, you may want to use Lily. But actually, even Lily's not even good for that because you're not drawing that many off of Lily past turn 1. You know, but Lily is straight draw. And then you have Judge. Judge is disruptive draw. What Judge is basically a Marshadow let loose in supporter form. You know, so that's all it is. It's a supportive version of Marshadow let loose. And you and your opponent shuffle your hand to your deck, draw 4 cards. So you put your opponent to 4 cards. They may not have the setup or the cards they need to get their turns going, get their attacks off. So you try to disrupt your opponent. But you also kind of hurt yourself as well. You put yourself to 4 cards. Honestly, Judge is basically the weakest version of all of the Pikarom decks. You know, because you're playing on a gamble. You're trying to gamble to make your opponent whiff. And they're drawing 4 cards. And if your gamble pays off, then hey, it pays off. You know, but sometimes your gamble will pay off, but it'll also hurt you. So both of you guys will be sitting there, okay, pass turn, pass turn, pass turn, pass turn. It's like, what to deuce? You know, somebody's got to get something, you know, or they'll be sitting there, they'll be going, okay, pass turn, okay, now I can do stuff, okay, I've drawn out a judge, I have a Jirachi, help me find something, or they draw 4 cards, and let's say you actually give them a decent hand with 4 cards. Let's say you go first turn judge, all right, you judge them first turn, and then they draw, they go, and now you basically gave them the perfect hand for Lily. So now to sit there to go and maybe play 1 or 2 cards, and now they can go Lily for 7 or maybe even 8 now because you gave them a small hand. And now they can basically go Lily for 7 or 8, which is busted. And you're just like, oh man, yeah, I just gave that to them. You know, so yeah, trying to take a chance on disruption, I just don't like that. I don't like the Lily version because it just doesn't draw. It just doesn't draw me enough cards. It doesn't really benefit me at all. The Pika Plant version, Pika Plants is interesting. I actually like it. Power Plant, the stadium, it can stop Mewtwo and Mew from attacking. It can also stop anything like any GX or EX abilities from going off. So if you play the Dene from your hand, you won't be able to use the Dene on the Power Plant. You know, if you play Tapu Lele, I mean Tapu Lele is not in the format anymore, but if you play it, you can't get off Tapu Lele. If you Zero Aura, if you have Zero Aura, even if it's on the bench already, you don't have Thunderclap Zone. Any GX or EX with an ability has no abilities under Power Plant, which really it hurts this deck. Power Plant hurts this deck, but people played it in this deck to hurt other decks. And the reason why you could get away with it is because you have the Jirachi engine. You have Jirachi, you have switches, you have the skateboards. You could basically maneuver around the Power Plant. And with only one Zero Aura in the deck, you're not really worried about Zero Aura. You know, so it was interesting, but you know, I'm playing Lysander's Labs right now because I think having Labs is the better stadium, especially against Gardevoir. Guardian. You know, Guardian basically won Sheffield Regionals, which was the last regionals that we had. You know, which basically spiked up that deck. And Pikarom has a bad matchup against that deck. Has a really bad matchup because of the Fairy Charms. You know, they attacked that Fairy Charm and then they played their plant. And if you can't respond, you can't do anything. It's almost over. I mean, you're sitting there, you're drawing, and you're literally passing your turn because you can't do anything. You know, until you top deck a Lysander's Labs or have a Stadium Nav in your hand or something to get the Labs, you know, you're going to be stuck like Chuck. You know, so yeah, this is important, very important. And I'd rather have this than plants. You know, the turbo version, I played the turbo version for the longest time. Like, I was Turbo Man. I went in. But recently, before I switched to this version, Before I switched to this version, I had a lot of problems with discarding too many resources with the DNA and going full turbo. Um, I was playing too risky, so I had to kind of dial it down a little bit. I got Jirachis to help me get get things rolling. I went back on the Dedenne. I have more supporters in my deck to help me find things. Um, so yeah, I kind of had to dial it down a little, and it is definitely actually better for me this way. Um, Not just for me, um, but I mean, but for you guys, yeah, I implore you guys to try this. I implore you guys to try this deck. Pikarom, actually. Um, so we talked about the 4 decks. I kind of want to talk about matchups. Um, Matchups for Pikarom. All right. I'm going to start with bad matchups or matchups that are unfavorable. Mew Box, Mew Mew GX. Um, so, Mew Mew GX, Pikarom has an unfavorable matchup against Mewtwo Box. For the simple fact that they can go tag purge, your tag teams can't attack. Also, with Mew Box, they have a wide variety of Pokemon that they can abuse, that they hit in a discard pile, that can basically do big attacks. They've got Macargo GX that can do the lava flow. You discard the fire energies from it and do 50 times the amount. So you could just do that and knock out a tag team. You can knock out Pikarom. You can knock out Choo Choo. They also have Charizard, the new Charizard GX, from actually hitting Fates with the 300 damage GX attack only for 4 energies. So if they get 4 energies on their Mewtwo Mew, they can just use that GX attack and take out a tag team easily. Alright? They also have, then again, another GX in there for Venom Shot. So when they want to, they can basically Venom Shot for 170 on your bench. If you have something damaged, they can Venom Shot that, or they can Venom Shot a Dedenne GX on your bench. They have a wide variety of attacks that they can just do, But I will say this: Pikarom can win that matchup. It's not all terrible. It's not all terrible. But what you have to do is you have to get Raichu out to paralyze them. Raichu can still paralyze them even if they tag purge. So you can still paralyze them. The only thing after that is that, if they have a switch or something to get out of it, then they can get out of your paralyzation. But this is why Reset Stamp is good. If they knocked out one of your Pokemon, which they probably will, or one of your tag teams, alright, you can Reset Stamp them. You Reset Stamp them, then you send out Raichu, and then you paralyze them. Reset Stamp will basically give them a lower hand, which basically means they can't basically have all the resources that they want at the time. Now, if they pull out of it, if they find a way to get their switch or whatever, then they got lucky. That's just how lucky they are. That they basically they get out of your Reset Stamp and they just go nuts and they just knock you out. They do that, yeah. They can have the game. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's what you have to do. You have to Reset Stamp them. You have to paralyze them. Or if they use, let's say they use one of their big Pokemon GX attacks. Let's say they use Macargo GX as Lava Flow. They use Lava Flow. So they knock out one of your tag teams. But Lava Flow isn't tag purge, which means your tag teams can attack now. Which means, hey, if you have a Raichu and Raichu back there with energies on it, send out the Raichu, maybe attach your energy for the turn. Maybe you have 4, maybe you have 5 on it. 4 with Thunder Mountain, 5 on it. You know, GX attack, Electro Power knocks out their Mew Mew. Alright, so now you go for a big knockout. Now, the one thing that the Mew Mew player can do is if they have another Mew Mew, either with 1 energy on the bench or a couple of energies on the bench, setting up while they have out the other one, if that other one goes down, they just bring out the other one. Go take a turn, go welder 2 more to it. It's energy for the turn. They've got like 4 or 5 energies on it. They're back in business. They're back in business. They're ready to knock you out. They're ready to win the game. You know what I'm saying? So the one thing the Pikarom player can do is to try to catch them where they don't have another